Hey folks, welcome back. So today I'm just going to take another look inside of one of the colonies that's underneath my oak tree. And this one I just moved down from a ladder and I haven't been inside of it yet. So without further rambling, let's go take a look and see how they're doing. Okay, so here is the colony, and again the bees are still orienting because they were up on the ladder, but now they are down a little bit. But I figure I might as well open them up and take a peek, see what's inside. Okay, and what we see here is we got ants. They're really tiny, small little tree ants. So I'm just going to use my hive tool and try to scrape these off as best I can. And get that out of there, and then we'll pull some frames. There's the queen. Now this queen is a little bit thinner than some of the other colonies. So other than the ants, I mean the bees are dealing with the ants by themselves. Since this lid is peeling, I'm going to replace it solidly. Hey folks, what's going on? This is November 26th. It's Monday. It's about maybe 10 a.m. in the morning here. Happy Cyber Monday to you that like to shop out there. Put out some honeycomb for the bees to feed on. It was honeycomb that I had from a prior removal that I left in a plastic bag. They really do a good job cleaning up the empty honey pieces. This bag was filled with honey on the bottom, but they cleaned up all the honey. I actually had set this out yesterday, and you'll see how I have a little piece of plywood laid over the top. That's just to help keep the sun away from it. Again, it's wax. It doesn't take that much heat to melt the wax. Also, this is my lanai. As you can see, I turned my lanai into a little bee shop here. I really need to have this in my garage. I got a ladder propped up with a little bar holding my frames. This is just temporary. I've been trying to clean these frames, get them to reuse. You can see that's wax moth damage. When a colony gets invaded by a wax moth and it goes unchecked, the moths will burrow into the wood. There is absolutely nothing wrong with reusing these frames. They just need to be cleaned up. There's little eggs that the wax moth have likely laid in the crevices. So all you do is you just clean out these frames. Again, that's all wax moth in there. I like to scrape the frames down real good and bundle them together and boil them in hot water for about 20 minutes. And I had a previous video, if you check out my YouTube page, just type in cleaning frames and you'll see a fire pit burn barrel that I had set up for this purpose. But I got about 20 frames all together and just pop out the foundation, scrape them down as best I can, boil them up, and they come clean real quick. Over here I do have my shop vac used to kind of get all the crumbs up off the table. We got a 10 frame medium box ready to go. That's got to go on top of one of my colonies. I have 2 more boxes for those other frames. And here you'll see I'm starting to string more deeps. And what I do is I take a piece of that plastic foundation and I cut it and I make starter strips. The plastic is secure enough it sits right in the groove top frame without falling out. So you really don't need to glue it or anything. It's a tight enough fit. And the reason for a starter strip is this helps the bees draw in the middle of the frame. You want the bees to draw down the middle of the frame, not on the edge of the frame. Because once they start drawing on the edge of the frame and the wax bows out, then it's too hard to push frames together and you squish bees. These frames have holes in the end bars. So you'll see those holes are pre-drilled. Now it's not a big deal if you bought frames that do not have the holes in the end bars. Just use a drill and just put your own holes in there. And I may experiment this time with these frames and do an X pattern. Instead of running my fishing string horizontally across, which has been working fine, I'm going to try just doing an X and see how that works. Just as an experiment. I'm sure it works all the same, but... Over here we have the turkey roaster, and in this turkey roaster I used to melt my old brood wax. Now one thing that I've tried and experimented with that you might want to try is just use a piece of screen. This is number 8 hardware cloth or mesh. It's the same hardware mesh that you would use to make screen bottom boards. The holes are too small that a bee can't fit through it, but this is wide enough so if you lay this piece of screen over top of that turkey roaster, you can then set comb on top of it, put the lid on, and the steam will melt that comb. So the wax will go through the screen and it will fall into the water. What I've been doing is I've been keeping this turkey roaster right around 180 or 200 degrees. It's on 180 right now because I've just been idle. When I really want to melt it, I'll turn it up just a little bit to maybe 200. And I just put all the comb right in there and let it melt. And again, it doesn't look too pretty. So I just skim the top, and using one of these little strainers to skim helps as well. And then that way you can kind of squish the pieces and kind of squeeze out the wax. So this is my preferred method now. Instead of trying to melt it with steam, I just fill this right up full with water, get it nice and hot, lay the comb pieces on there, dunk them down with the spoon, and then when it all melts, I just kind of use this to scrape the top away. But eventually what I'll do is I'll dump this into another pot or into a 5-gallon bucket with water, and I'll let the wax separate, and I'll just repeat the process again. And as it goes on, I'll just add more and more wax.